I, 24F, come from a very, very dysfunctional family. My family has always been toxic, and even though I had cut them off years ago, the issues I developed due to them still linger on and affect my day-to-day productivity. For some background, my father, 54M, graduated with top honors from some of the best universities during his time. It was there he met my mother, who was a stunning woman. She was a waitress in an upscale cafe during those times. They hit it off and got married. It was the classic case of a high-earning man marrying a quintessential beauty. Unfortunately, his paycheck and her looks did not guarantee compatibility. Their marriage is a hot mess for anyone on the inside to witness. On the outside, they are this power couple that one can only dream of. Another thing about my father is that he is a misogynistic prick. For him, all a woman needs to be is pretty, good at household chores, and capable of producing babies. Lots and lots of babies. And my mother had to comply. They tried and tried but were unable to conceive naturally. My father believed there was something wrong with my mother because she couldn't get pregnant naturally. My mother struggled with this for years, and he would refuse to take her to a doctor, believing women had been having babies without doctors for ages. Why couldn't she? From what I've been told, my mom was miserable naturally so. Their marriage was at an all-time low, and my father was hell-bent on having a kid, in particular, a son. He was also unwilling to divorce my mother because he could not bear the thought of the societal ramifications. He was old-fashioned to the absolute core. Fortunately for my mother and unfortunately for my father, they had one child, and that was me. My father was disgusted that after all these years, what he got was a girl. The contempt was obvious. I remember being a kid and asking my mother why dad didn't like me. Every time, my mother came up with a new excuse as to why dad was pissy around me today. Gradually, I got used to it. Then the impossible happened. He started talking to me, engaging with me, trying to be my best friend. It was weird, and I was scared of him at first, but then I started loving the attention. I was the center of his world, and I loved every minute of it. But this wasn't because he had a sudden change of heart or wanted to be a good father and mend his ways. It took me a long time to realize this. He didn't get close to me for me, because I was his daughter. He did it because I was smart. I got good grades in school, and I was bright. I used to understand quickly and draw connections. Most of my relatives and teachers kept saying I was a bright kid, that I was gifted. This was what he had always wanted, a smart and gifted son. But he got a smart and gifted daughter. Suddenly, I was the apple of his eye. Nothing else mattered except me, and I had to work very hard and do great things in life. That was the cost of his love. I didn't know that at the beginning, but I gradually came to understand it. Whenever I did well in school, I was rewarded not just materially, but he made sure to take time off from work and spend it with me. Whenever I didn't do as well, he would work extra hours, not come home on time, and not talk to me for days on end. I felt like the only way I could get my father to love me was by being a high achiever. It was psychologically and mentally abusive for me, but that was just how I was brought up, and there was nothing I could do to change it. My mother didn't intervene at all. She kept on watching from the sidelines, knowing full well how much all this impacted me. She didn't have the spine to help me out or take a stand. I was all alone. This went on for a very long time. My father had great dreams for me, and by extension, the family and his reputation. He knew what my future looked like. He had decided everything for me, and I was expected to follow it to the T. When I was 12, he sat me down and told me it was his greatest wish to see me become a lawyer and then a senator. If I was a good daughter, I would do everything in my power to make his dream a reality. I was completely crushed that day. I still shiver when I recollect it and how stressed and anxious it made me. Everything from then on was about my law degree and my venture into politics. I wasn't even given the time or luxury to decide and develop my own interests. My life was set in stone, and I couldn't change it. So I worked hard. I worked every single day to make my father's dream come true. I got into a great college on a scholarship after school, and Dad was so proud of me. He couldn't stop showing me off to the world. I was elated that I made him so proud of me. It was my dream come true because it was his dream come true. I left for college, and then everything changed. I made friends, I was at ease because I wasn't at home, and that's when I found out that life wasn't about making every single moment about pleasing your parents and making them proud. There was more to me than my parents. In fact, there was supposed to be more to me than them. And then I went overboard. I stopped studying. I failed papers. It was like I was trying to live for all those 18 years in one go. And, of course, I couldn't keep up with the course. I developed hobbies far removed from law. I got into badminton, and I even started vlogging with a friend. A year into college, COVID hit. For an entire semester, we were locked inside our hostel rooms, And we had no classes because the online infrastructure wasn't working for everyone. It took time to get into the groove. During this time, my vlogging took off. My friend Kylie, 24F, and I got insanely popular, and our subscribers grew multifold on several different platforms. I was disillusioned with my college, with my chosen career, and with my family. Plus, I felt extremely courageous because of all those years of repressed emotions. I focused all my energy on the vlog and TikTok. We even made an Instagram and got popular there, too. I wasn't interested in studying anymore, and I loved what I was doing. I stopped receiving calls from home. I didn't attend any online classes, started performing awfully, and it was a train wreck. But the channel had also started making money. We were doing ads for products and getting small businesses as collaborators, so it was going well for us. I decided to drop out. I knew I would never excel at law, and I didn't have the stamina to push through my entire life for my dad. I also knew that even if I somehow became a lawyer, I would hate my job and my life. In all honesty, I didn't give it much thought because I was on a spree of impulse, but I decided to drop out. I didn't even bother informing my parents because by then, I had begun hating them for eating away at my childhood and teenage years. I just wanted to be free of them and their expectations. The paperwork from the university took some time because of COVID, but I was finally free in a few weeks. Kylie dropped out too, and we rented a small place and started seriously working on our content. It was only after I dropped out that I informed my family because I didn't want them influencing my decision. It was a dumpster fire the minute I told them. I've never heard my dad yell such profanities, but well, there's a first time for everything, I guess. He first called me every name under the sun, then blamed my mom for producing a kid like me, and then cursed all women. The inner misogynist was back. Maybe it was never gone. He had just kept it hidden because he wanted a daughter that excelled. He said I would be the biggest failure of the family and that he had no intention of being associated with a useless piece of junk like me, and disowned me. It was a horrible time for me emotionally, but later I realized it was for the best. I didn't have the energy or strength to cut him off myself, and I know if he hadn't done it, I'd still be stuck in the toxic cycle of living out my life for him. It was tough for us in the beginning, especially because of COVID. However, Kylie and I slowly built up the business and made a good, respectable brand name for ourselves. We're part of the travel side of content creation, and things got much better for us once COVID restrictions were lifted. We're now extremely successful and make more money than I could have ever imagined. I'm happy with where I am in life. 2 years ago, on a trip to South Africa, I met a guy. We hit it off instantly and got involved pretty quickly. We tried a long-distance relationship for a while, and then he came to the US. We've been rock solid since the beginning, and it didn't take long for me to realize he was the one I would marry. He knows everything about my relationship with my parents and has been such a strong source of support that I've finally come to understand what unconditional love actually feels like. He is also very supportive of my career, even though he has a white-collar job in a multinational corporation. However, he has none of the airs my father had and respects my hard work and job. We're about to get married, and I think this news reached my parents, which is why they've been desperate to reconcile for a while. I put up the news of my engagement on social media, and I got a lot of traction on that post. I tagged my fiancé there, and I think that was how my family found out that this is a respectable guy with a respectable job, and I was doing the one thing a woman ought to do: marry well. Suddenly, I was the darling of my snake of a father again. He tried multiple ways to get in touch with me: emails, texts, DMs, everything begging for a new beginning, asking me to bury the past and live this new part of life with my entire family. I could see through the bluff immediately, and there were many days I didn't even read his messages, let alone respond. He was desperate to get back in touch and be a part of my life and my fiancé's again. I didn't like it at all. I didn't want him near me, but there was this wicked part of me thirsting for revenge and retribution for all those years I missed out on because of him. I spoke to my fiancé, and he said he was okay with whatever I wanted to do. All that mattered to him was that I shouldn't end up feeling worse about everything. We started our wedding preparations, and I told my parents they were invited. My father was expecting to walk me down the aisle, but I told him he should be thankful he was getting an invitation in the first place. That shut him up real quick. I had my revenge prepared, and I was going to serve it cold. I didn't want any drama on my wedding day because it was one of the most important days of my life with the one person who taught me what true love was. So the wedding happened without a hitch, and it was beautiful. I got the ceremony I dreamed of. My father tried to act smart during the wedding by getting up in the middle of dinner to make a toast, but Kylie made him sit down. It was embarrassing for him but hilarious for me. My mother took me aside after the ceremony and tried to give me marriage advice, but I told her to piss off because she was never a wife to my dad, she was just a slave. I told her the only reason I invited her was because Dad begged and begged to be part of the wedding, and I wanted to be the bigger person, just like I had all my life. She left with tears in her eyes, but I didn't feel sorry for her at all. I cried such tears throughout my childhood, but she was never there to wipe them away. All she cared about was what Dad wanted, what he did, and how much he provided. Everything else, she accepted and wanted me to accept as well. Once the ceremony was over, I put my revenge plan into action. The idea was to defame him in public. The only thing he was ever concerned about was his reputation. So that's what I was going to attack and destroy. I would do it with no remorse because he showed no pity to a young girl who cried for days on end, apologizing profusely and begging her dad to talk to her, just because she got a B grade on a stupid math test in 8th grade. Once I was back from my honeymoon, I decided to put up my wedding vlog on my channels. In the months leading up to the wedding, I had shared the entire planning process there, so the wedding video had to go up too. It was here that I played my cards. I started the video by saying this was the best day of my life and that I was so happy to share it with the one person who taught me what love is. With this, I shared my entire life story with my viewers. I talked about the psychological abuse I faced at the hands of my father. I talked about how my mother never uttered a word and just watched me get punished repeatedly. It was a long and heartfelt section of the video, and I cried multiple times while shooting it. I then said this was why the bond I have with my husband is the most beautiful thing in the world to me and that I would never have been able to feel true love and support had it not been for him and Kylie. I put the video on social media and went to sleep. It turned out to be one of my highest watched videos. The engagement on it was crazy, and everyone was calling out my parents for the shoddy job they'd done in the comments. It was cathartic to read those comments. I felt seen and validated. It was an emotional time for me, and seeing all those people come out to support me, to lighten my burden, and share my story made me feel I wasn't alone. The ramifications for my father were severe. He saw the video himself and called me, but I didn't answer. Then another call, then a third one. He had gone berserk. He wanted to do damage control as soon as possible, but I wasn't interested. He sent me texts and emails, asking me to call him ASAP, telling me to remove the video, but I didn't. I even made sure to personally send the link to every family member who couldn't attend the wedding, just to let them know what mom and dad had been doing all this time. The meltdown was crazy. I didn't respond to his emails, but I engaged with my commenters regularly. That's when the real drama started. I guess my father got his friends to comment on my channel and report it. Suddenly, there was a barrage of comments about how children are always ungrateful and parents only want what's best for them. I knew it was my parents' doing. The boomer language and tone of the comments were direct giveaways as to who was behind this nonsense. I knew my work was done. I then deleted the video because it had done all the damage it could. I put up a post saying I had chosen to remove the video because of the negativity it was attracting. The negativity wasn't really affecting me, but I knew it had affected my parents, and that's what I wanted to achieve in the first place. I couldn't let them get away scot-free for what they had done to me. It might seem petty to you. It might have been better if I'd moved on and put everything in the past. What I did might have been unhealthy and toxic in its own way, but it was also deeply cathartic. It made me feel that I finally had a voice and that what I was screaming and yelling all my life wasn't in my head but real and painful. If that makes me a bad person, so be it. I had the choice between being selfish and being the bigger person. I chose the former, and I am not sorry for it. Update 1. My father tried getting in touch with my husband. Now, the thing about my fiancé is, he's been very supportive of whatever I wanted to do, but he would have preferred it didn't come to that. He said it was absolutely my call as to how I proceeded with exposing my parents, but if he were to make the choice, he wouldn't have done what I did. When my father got in touch with him, he told me immediately. But when he saw how much that stressed me out, he said he'd deal with Dad on his own and that I needn't worry anymore. It turns out my father wanted his help to convince me to do some damage control. The poor man thought my marriage was like his, that my husband would command me to do something, and I'd do it because that's just what wives do. Apparently, my video reached a lot of people. While I'd sent it to some family members myself, it somehow reached his workplace, and people started talking about it. Some younger employees began avoiding him, and he's had to do a lot of HR damage control. This has affected his productivity, mental health, and overall quality of life, and he wants me to intervene and make it right. My husband, Jake, for the purpose of this post because I can't keep writing my husband over and over again, asked my dad what he had in mind and what he thought was the best way for me to remedy the situation. Dad said he expected me to release an apology video, saying I'd exaggerated for popularity and that my parents were the most supportive parents I could have hoped for. He essentially wanted me to save his ass and sacrifice my entire career by retracting my statement. Jake said he'd talk to me and let him know, and then he blocked Dad's number as soon as the call ended. I'm not sad because I know my father isn't capable of any kind of emotions, but I sure am appalled at his audacity. I'm obviously not going to do what he asks, and a part of me, the petty part, wants to make even this request public and make sure he's slandered even more. But I think by doing what I've already done, I've reawakened my past, and I don't want it to keep haunting me. I had a long chat with Jake, and he says it's time for me to let it go, not in the sense that I should forgive them, but that I should just stop associating with them, like I had been doing for the last 5 years. He said without their treatment of me and their behavior to the public, I'd done what I had to and gotten my revenge. Now it's time to drop it and move forward. I agree with him, and that's what we've decided to do, but I can't shake the nagging feeling that they need to face much more in order to come even remotely close to the mental trauma they inflicted on me. I went through years of psychological abuse, and it can't be washed away with one video calling them out. Jake insists that allowing more of this to fester will ultimately spill over into our lives, and despite what I claim, I'll continue to be affected. He says I need to let karma take its course and not meddle. He knows they'll have to face the consequences of what they've done, whether it be through me or someone else. I want to be the karma that bites them in the ass because I'm the one who had to tolerate it all. Nonetheless, I don't think my father will contact us again. If he tries, he'll soon figure out he's been blocked, and that's an answer that requires no explanation. I'm just glad that the world he commands so much respect in now knows him for what he truly is. Update 2. My mother tried to get in touch with me. I had blocked her too, so she called me from a different number. I answered, and when I realized it was her, I wanted to hang up, but she begged me to hear her out for 5 minutes and said she'd never call me again if that's what I wanted. She started off by apologizing for not standing up for me throughout my childhood. She said she was scared of Dad and was completely dependent on him financially, which is why she didn't have the courage to stand up for herself or me. She knows she failed as a mother, and that it's too late to ask for forgiveness, but she hopes I'll give her a chance to rectify and build a bond with me. It was a long and emotional call, and we were both crying by the end. Even though she failed me as a mother, as a grown woman, I can understand her predicament. My father was too big of a bully, and it took nerves of steel to stand up to him. I told her I wasn't ready for a relationship now and that I didn't feel comfortable diving into a mother-daughter relationship with her, but I was willing to give her a chance. I made it abundantly clear that it would take a lot for us to have a cordial relationship because, despite the situation, she was the adult, and it was her job to protect me. I never had that from her, and I'd never felt emotionally or psychologically safe around her, and that's bound to reflect now. She was okay with whatever I wanted and didn't make any demands. We've decided to stay in contact. I talked to her a little, and I'll take my time to see if I want a deeper relationship with her. I've made it clear that this is between her and me and that I want nothing to do with my father. I'm only willing to give her a chance. I'm not extending this grace to my father, and I don't plan to, ever. I've told her not to tell him we're talking because all he'll do is pressure her into making me set his public image straight, and I'm not interested in that. For now, the secrecy is maintained, and I hope it stays that way. Jake has asked me to be cautious about her because she has a history of being flaky and easily influenced by others. Somehow, this time around, I have a good feeling about her, and I think this might be the start of a new relationship. I'm not jumping into this equation right away, but I sincerely hope it works out. I'd love it if we could mend things and move forward, at least cordially, because she was as much a victim of the circumstances as I was. Update 3. I should have listened to all the advice on Reddit. I was too optimistic about it all, even though most of you said my mother only came back at my father's behest. You were right, and she has completely betrayed my trust. We were in touch for about a month, which is when I felt comfortable enough to meet her. We decided to meet at a cafe not far from my place. I told Jake I wanted to do this alone, but I still needed him around in case I wanted to bolt. And that's what happened. She was already there when I arrived, and she wasn't alone. Dad was with her. Part of me wanted to leave right then, but I decided to talk to them. My father immediately started hounding me, and I felt terribly cornered. My mother, again, didn't say a single word. My father went on and on about how he was a great parent and that I remembered everything incorrectly. 15 minutes in, I dropped an SOS to Jake and went home. Needless to say, my mother is blocked again, and no power on earth will reverse this. She has broken my trust for the umpteenth time, and I am done with both of them. I cannot take any more of this gaslighting and torture. 18 years of it are enough to last me a lifetime. Jake and Kylie have been my support through it all, and I'm glad Kylie and I have another exciting work trip coming up. We're going to cover 2 Balkan countries, that's all I can share with you, and we're busy preparing for that. It'll be a good change from the mess of the last few months. Now, I know I'll never regret not giving them a chance. My parents have proven, once again, they're not capable of being trusted, and there's no way I'll ever feel safe with them. That chapter of my life is over, and I've decided not to take their toxicity with me into the future. Thanks, Reddit, for all your advice and input. I should have listened, but well, it is what it is.